Hello and welcome to Salty About Health. My name is Dalaney and I'm here with my mom and co-host, Mary. So Mom, why are we salty about health?
Good question. It's because both of us have had struggles, some more serious than others, and no one showed us simple ways we could jump into the driver's seat and take control.
And why are we sharing our views with our listeners?
Well, because we want our listeners to realize that it may take time, but with some simple knowledge about health, they'll be able to make a few changes and dig deeper to take control of their well being and live a more vibrant life.
That's fantastic. But right now, before we get into all of that, we just need to do some housekeeping. Here we go. This is an opinion-based podcast. This is not in any way offered as a diagnosis or treatment for any disease, illness, or infirmity for physical or mental condition or any other condition you may have. We are not doctors or practitioners of any kind. Persons needing medical care should obtain it from a medical practitioner. So, consult your practitioner before making any health decision. The opinions offered here in this podcast are ours alone. Again, we're not doctors, and the banter you're going to be listening to is our view and our view alone. Okay, that's done. We, of course, also want to have an open dialogue with our listeners. So stay tuned to the end of the episode, and we'll let you know all of the ways that we can connect. Welcome, everyone. It's so good to have you back for episode 29, and we're going to continue our series on running. So, in episode 28, we talked about marathon running with my friend Trent, and it was a fun conversation that we had with her. But now we have my friend Kara Henley on to talk to us about cross country running. And you, Kara, have been running cross country for a long time, right? So why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name's Kara Henley. I've been running since 2005. I started running cross country when I was in 7th grade and ran through middle school and high school, and then I ran collegiate cross country at Grove City College. So
Very nice.
Very long time.
yeah.
It's awesome.
Okay, so let's give our listeners a little background on cross country running.
Yeah, so it looks like, and Kara, you can correct any of this because we got this from an article on running.com, but it looks like cross country has started getting popular again. And so we just pulled some information from that article. And of course, we have that link in the notes that the listeners can check out as well.
Definitely.
Yep.
So it originates back to England as early as 1837 when schools began competitions against each other in the sport. The first championship was held in 1867. And from there, it was introduced to the Olympic Games in 1912. Cross country was a popular event for the Games. However, in the 1924 Olympics in Paris, a heat wave on event day resulted in only 15 of the 38 runners reaching the finish line, which the rest needed to be rescued by medics. So the public were so horrified at the conditions the cross country athletes endured that Olympic officials ruled to ban cross country running from future games, though it remained a part of the modern Olympic pentathlon.
Oh my gosh. Did you know that, Kara?
No, but that doesn't really surprise me.
Well, there's actually a big story in the news now in 2021 or 2022, one of the Olympics. So the next Olympics in France are going to reintroduce them. Oh, it'd be 2024. They said it'd be a 100-year anniversary and that they want to reintroduce some marathon to the Olympics. But we're going to get
That's really interesting.
Yeah. That is really interesting. Hopefully nobody needs to be rescued by medics this time.
No, but I mean, if you've looked at like certain marathons, I think it was like maybe the Chicago Marathon a couple years ago, it was really, really warm. And even maybe Boston too, that heat waves the heat can really affect you when you're running.
Yeah,
so
that makes sense. Okay, so yeah, like mom said, the World Athletics Council just confirmed in June 2020 that the competition format for a cross country event is going to be in the next Olympics, the 2024 Paris Olympics. And it's going to be a mixed team relay for 15 countries. So each team's going to have 2 men and 2 women. And each member of the team is going to run 2 legs of a 2.5 kilometer course, alternating between male and female athletes as each athlete completes a 2.5 kilometer course and hands over to a teammate. It's pretty cool. So the World Athletics is going to meet in Paris in 2024 with their organizing committee to work out further details of that proposal. So it sounds like it could change based on their discussion. But World Athletics President Sebastian Coe said he was delighted at the prospect of cross country returning to the Olympic Games 100 years after it last appeared in the 1924 Games. That is cool that they picked 100 years. I mean, probably didn't wait for 100 years to happen, but that's cool.
Yeah, I think that's exciting because the sport's popularity has been kept alive thanks to schools continuing to race and compete in the discipline since its beginning, and its mainstream appeal has had a general increase over the last 30 years.
So now we're just going to give listeners some tips to get ahead for cross country running. So we'll definitely need Kara's input on that because mom and I don't do the running thing.
No, we don't. But after our last interview about marathon running, we're tempted. So I'm sure you can push us right over, Kara, and we're going to be out there running tomorrow.
Mom is inspired now because Trent was like, well, with enough practice, anyone can run. So now she's convinced that means Dalaney specifically. But anyways, so starting with train hills, because many people often underestimate how much up and down movement is involved with cross country. So events are usually a maximum of 12 kilometers, but courses can vary and have very large ascents and descents that can make or break competitors. So those looking to do their first cross country should focus on hill sprints and uphill running as one of the most effective ways to spend your training time to become accustomed to the hardest part of the race. Do you agree with that, Kara?
I do. Actually, that's hill repeats are one of my favorite workouts to do, especially because I was originally lived in Ohio and I moved to Pennsylvania for collegiate cross country, and it was definitely difficult because it was just more hilly out here. But I definitely think that helped with my level of fitness. You know, running the hills, doing the hill repeats. I think that's one of the best ways to improve your time.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Oh, very cool. I'm just not really into hills. So.
The Southern California girl. I was like, no.
Another helpful tip is to get off the track and head for the trails. So grass and rocky trail routes give you the perfect combination of training, terrain, and the best represent what the actual event will be like. Even running along the sidewalk or road running aren't as valuable as training on the uneven paths of the fields and the forest. And you need to know how to handle rocks and dirt and slipping and sliding as you're sprinting along. And that can only come by training off the regular running routes. So, Kara, do you do this?
Do you have any good stories for that, Kara?
I mean, definitely in college, running on the road isn't great. I think there's a saying out there that road running is for your bones, and then running on the grass and gravel, that's more for your muscles, because that's going to help strengthen your ankle muscles and your other muscles because of getting thrown off balance from just the ground. But I definitely prefer running on grass just because it's easier on the joints as well. So running a lot on concrete or asphalt would typically hurts your knees and your hips more. So
what is a typical cross country course for you?
It depends on where the course is at, but usually it's all grass. Sometimes it's trails that are covered in roots, and sometimes there's rocks. But yeah, a lot of times it would just depend but most of the time it's on the grass. You're running around like fields, usually like baseball fields on a school's property, or maybe they have a little section of woods where you're running through trees and stuff like that. So.
And then I guess since obviously you're outside, the no weather is bad weather when it comes to being a cross country runner. You are going to get dirty. There's going to be rain and mud, and they're very real parts of the event. And they can hugely affect the outcomes of races, especially if like 1924 told us anything. So when it comes to training, weather, they're saying that weather is no excuse to not be out there because you never know what the weather will be like on race day. So did you experience that at school? Because I know for our school it pretty much rained if there were more than 2 students on campus like all year. So
Oh yes, oh yes. There's a saying that there's no such thing as bad weather, just soft people or the wrong clothing.
Oh, okay. I like that.
Yeah. So, but I mean, I've trained in blizzards. I've trained in absolute downpours. Running cross country, you'd get so muddy, and it's just like you just got to run. And I think it's hilarious. You see, there'd be like a huge mud puddle on the course, and people would be going around it. And I'd be like, I'm gonna get dirty anyways, so just go straight through it, So, but yeah, you have to kind of be willing to accept that. And the other thing is too, even when it's hot out, you're going to get really, really sweaty. Like you just kind of got to get over it. So you can't really let it affect you.
I mean, I guess that's like volleyball where we're like, well, if there's no lightning, we're still gonna like play outside. But I guess because I already have the disposition to running where I'm like, do I want to do this anyways? Like I'm taking any excuse. But volleyball, I'd be like, no, like I'm gonna play today. So it's like the same attitude.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, so here's another good tip, and it is know the course. Races can often be full of surprises, such as bottlenecks across narrow bridges, sharp turns, and confusing forest turnoffs. So, with this in mind, knowing the course before you run, it can provide a huge advantage when it comes to the competition. The best thing to do is a walk or drive along the course to see for yourself all the potential obstacles. This knowledge may give you some advantage and will help you plan when you make your move on race day, especially coming into the final few kilometers. So, if walking the course is simply not possible, a map and discussion with race organizers or others who have run the route that day is what could wipe minutes from your time. Do you do this? Do you check out the course before you run it?
Yes. Yeah. That's one of kind of the pre-race rituals that we would always do, whether it be, middle school, high school, college. You always typically want to know where you're going and where you're supposed to go. Because a lot of times too, because like in middle school, the races are 2 miles long, high school, the races are 3 miles long. And then in college, the races were 6 kilometers. So like 3.7. So, but in high school, middle school, a lot of times they would have different cutoffs for where the course would go because of the different lengths of races. So you would need to know, I need to turn here on this loop, or I need to turn here on this loop, because otherwise that's going to take me to the wrong part of the course. So,
wow.
And sometimes they'll have volunteers out on the course to kind of direct you where to go. And so if you're not able to walk or run or jog the course beforehand, sometimes it's fine because there's people directing you. But yeah, you definitely want to know where to go. And I've definitely experienced not knowing where to go, and I was in the lead. Yeah.
You were you're in the lead. Okay, tell us more. I want to hear about when you got lost.
So I was in high school, and we didn't have enough girls on our team to run in the varsity race. So we had to run in the open or the JV race. That's when you don't have 5 girls on the team, because you need 5 people on the team to run the varsity race, because that's how you score as a team. So we only had 4. And so we had gone to this course before, and I was like, it's fine. There'll be people with me. Not a problem. I'm not that fast of a runner. I didn't think I was that good. And then turns out, end up starting the race. And then all of a sudden I'm out front, and I'm like, oh, okay. And so I get to a point where the course kind of V's, and because it's a white line on the ground usually. And so the one went this way, one went that way. And there was a volunteer there, or, maybe a parent of, the homeschool standing there. And I like pointed and I was like, which way do I go? And so they pointed me in the right direction. So luckily I didn't get lost, ended up winning, but it was still like, yeah, I guess I should be more prepared next time.
Oh my
So
gosh.
If people knew Kara, I mean, she's always very prepared.
Yes.
So
This is where it started now. But with being prepared, we even talked to Trent about this. This was her one thing that, Mom and I don't run, so we didn't bring this up at all. But she was like, no, you need the right equipment. So she's like, don't just go to a regular store for shoes. So you need shoes and gear that matter most. So for cross country events, you're in dirt and mud and then concrete and forests and flats all over the place and all in a relatively shorter distance run. So speed is crucial, but so is grip because falls are common. So spending the time researching the right pair of cross country shoes for you is very important. So how did you start doing that, Kara, finding the right shoes?
Well, since I started running and in middle school, I had two older brothers who also ran cross country. So my dad, I think, took me out to the store and I kind of just picked a pair that I liked and that were going to like function well for me and fit me. So I think the biggest thing is getting a shoe that fits, because spikes, typically they're like thinner shoes with like actual spikes on the bottom of them that you can unscrew and change out the sizes of. Typically spikes fit a little bit tighter than like normal training shoes do. So you want to make sure that you get the right fit for those.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So it is the end of the race that matters. So cross country events at a professional level often see competitors playing a game of tactics, choosing to keep close together in a pack until the final few kilometers before making their move. This is important to remember if you fall or are forced back into the pack. So resist the temptation to speed to the front of the group and burn all your energy too early. A better tactic is to find and regain your rhythm after a fall. And once you feel ready, use your speed towards the end of the race instead of earlier to regain your position. The aim is that once you start going all out, you don't stop until the end. Do you find this to be relevant?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you definitely want to negative split your race, which means you slowly get faster over time rather than positive split, because then you're just going to end up feeling really bad. But then also, don't get sucked into groups, or into packs that are running faster than you because you want to try and stick with them. One of the main things is to run your own race and to run your own pace, and don't kind of get caught up with that mentality. And then if something does happen, where someone elbows you out of the way or you get tripped up, don't let that affect you either, because I've had that happen to me, and you get flustered and you get mad and you want to run faster. And it's like, no, you got to keep a cool head.
Yeah.
You got to stay calm, because it's not a long race, but it's not a short race either. You still got a ways to go. So sometimes you just got to take a breath, kind of let it go, and regroup and kind of get back into it and get back into the zone.
Because I feel like I've been told by cross country people too, like they'll have someone on the team who is like they call him like the rabbit or whatever, and just like their whole point is to just draw out the other team and like run faster and try to like get them to get hyped up and follow them, and then like they're not trying to win it themselves, but just like to tire the other team out so that their teammates can like come in. Is that still a thing? I don't even know.
I mean, there's definitely like some kind of, you can have tactics like that. I try not to focus too much on the other people and trying to get other people to do things, because for me, cross country is, I'm racing against other people, but a lot of the times I'm racing against myself.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to beat my previous time and to be better than the day before. And sometimes people get too caught up in trying to, we're going to draw these people out. And okay, there's some tactic to that, but I don't think it's wise to do that. So,
Well, you said you started in like 7th grade, right? And
yes.
and your brothers also ran. Is that something your whole family did? Did your mom and dad, were they runners? Or why did you choose, cross cross country?
Well, my dad ran track when he was in high school. And so he's been kind of a runner his whole life. And he used to work pretty close to home when I was growing up. So he would come home and go running on his lunch break. And so my mom would she'd get on the bike, she'd put me in the baby carrier on the bike, and we'd go with him for his run. So it kind of grew up running. And then my brothers got interested in cross country, and I was the youngest. So I ended up going to meets because I didn't really have a choice. And figured, well, if my brothers are doing it, everyone's like, when are you going to start running? So I just kind of naturally followed their footsteps and ended up really, really enjoying it. So, and my dad still runs to this day. My brothers kind of run a little bit. And then my mom actually just started running probably in the last year or so. So it's kind of a family thing now.
There is hope for us, Dalaney. See?
But like, I think our family thing should be volleyball though, because your serve is already like pretty great.
Well, Kara, you see Dalaney, not on a regular basis, but you do see her. So next time, take her out for a run and see if you can help her out there.
It can be
Get
your
it
walk
started.
during your cool down.
No, we just got to find you the right training plan. We can do the couch to 5K.
Oh my gosh. I mean, that's true. The one time I have run recently is when my friend Lauren took me, because we had a destination. So we ran to the ice cream shop.
There you
So
go.
I ran it was like a mile or two.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Motivation.
I may have walked back, but I ran there.
That's the first step. Just moving. You got to get moving, and then you'll slowly progress from there. But
yeah.
Do you have any injuries? Is it something that you're still dealing with? Did you get one, or do you get over them, or have you just not had many injuries?
I have certainly been very, very blessed to not have any major injuries during my running career, but I have had some issues. So in high school, I was dealing with shin splints for a little while, and then I have some pretty consistent knee pain, but that really hasn't gone away. But the causes of it have changed over the years. So a lot of it has to do with muscular imbalances. So it's just me not doing exercises that I should be doing outside of running. And then I have had some injuries where it's been from like overuse as well. So I've had to take some time off to let that heal. But then once I let that heal, and it's usually fine. So, but I haven't had any like major stress fractures or anything like that, which is pretty common with runners. So.
Well, we were talking to Trent, and she was saying that she runs 15 to 20 miles a week. Is that something that how do you prepare, and do you actually run that much?
Yeah. I typically have a training plan that I'll follow. So recently I haven't been running quite as much as I did in college, but I would make myself, I still do this when if I have a big race coming up, I'll make a training plan and kind of stick to it. And that'll kind of dictate what my mileage is per week. But for example, in college, because this is when I was doing a lot of running, I made a training plan starting at beginning of May till end of August. And I got up to running, I think it was 54 miles a week at the most.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, so 15 to 20 I would say that's pretty common for people who are who enjoy running a lot. That's probably a pretty common mileage per week. But it takes time. It takes time to get there though. It's not like it's like overnight.
I was gonna say I like Delaney's run a mile to the ice cream shop. Do that for a few weeks.
Convinced her.
And then see if you can go further than that.
Yeah, but there's definitely other training plans. There's a really popular one called the Couch to 5K. So it's supposed to take you from sitting on your couch all the way being up to running a 5K. And so they start you off really small. And so I think following something like that would be really good for someone who wants to try running. And I know that my mom, she started out with a bunch of our running friends at our hometown, and she would run a minute, walk a minute, and then run 2 minutes, walk a minute, and just kind of slowly build that up. And then depending upon how she felt, maybe today I'm not feeling that great. Okay, so I'm going to run a minute, walk 2 minutes, and just kind of to get your body moving. So that's kind of the first step.
How long did it take her to get comfortable with then just running?
I'd say definitely a couple months. I think she still does that some days, but I know that she did her first 5K like last July. And that was kind of a big deal for her to do it nonstop without walking at all. And so I think
nice.
so I think since then she's up to like, she can do 4 miles without stopping, but she doesn't do that every day though. So,
well, I guess on that, like, how many events do you participate in, like, each year, I guess?
So I don't remember in middle school how many we did each year, but I know in high school it was about, we had 10 meets.
Okay.
10 meets every year. And
For,
then
like,
in
the
college,
season.
yeah, for like the season. And that included some of the, like districts and regionals and state. So I think with like maybe districts, it was 10. And then if you add on regionals, it would have been 11. But then in college, we had a little bit less. It was about 6. We would have 6 meets a year. So, and that's within like, a month or 2-month time frame.
Yeah.
So now you do cross country. You're not on a team or anything, right? Or do you have friends you run with, or?
Since I've graduated, I haven't really participated in any cross country races. They really only call it cross country when you're in school. I would equate kind of the equivalent adult would be trail running. So you do trail races. So those are kind of like any road races where you sign up and you do them. You got to pay to do them, but you just find ones that you like. And I've participated in a couple of those, and they remind me a lot of cross country, maybe a little bit more intense from like a hill perspective.
Okay.
So,
and how long are they, the distance?
It can depends on the race and the race director, but typically they're longer. So the ones that I typically do are about 10Ks. So they're about 6.2 miles. The longest one I've done is as a 30K. And so then you start getting into ultra running and ultra marathons. And most of those are going to be on trails and those. So
that's cool. That was a great introduction for our next episode with Ralph, who will be asking all about ultra running too.
Yeah. It's good stuff.
So we asked Trent in marathon running, she brings her own snacks somehow and eats them because for the fuel.
Goo?
Yeah.
Is that what you call it?
Yep, goo.
Do you need that for cross country or trail running if it's, 6 miles?
I would say it depends on the person. So for typically cross country races, if it's a 5K, no, you're really not going to need any nutrition during the middle of the race. I would take a goo before the race started to kind of get that extra boost of energy from the carbs, but I wouldn't eat anything during the race just because it was so short and it was actually really fast. Now, the 10K, I think maybe some people do. I don't. That's kind of right on the cusp of me needing to eat more food. Now, kind of once you get anything above a 10K, that's when I start to like take either I like the goo chews, which are kind of like gummies. So I usually take those. So if I'm going for a longer either training run or if I'm running a half marathon, I've done a couple trail half marathons, I'll get to about the halfway point and eat nutrition then. And if I don't, I actually notice the effects of it. Usually my muscles start cramping up because I don't have enough sodium. And and then I start to feel tired and I'm like, oh, so that's why I kind of need a little bit of something. So, but typically cross country running, no.
Do you carb load the night before or anything?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So what do you typically eat?
Pasta. Lots of pasta, lots of bread.
I think that was my favorite part of doing track and field when I was a kid, because my parents made me do it for a few years. And that was my favorite part, was like I got to eat a ton of pasta before.
Pasta. Yeah. Yeah. I definitely do that. Try to balance it out nowadays with protein as well. Make sure I get good protein. It's not just carbs because you do need the protein as well. So, but yeah, definitely pasta the night before. Some sort of pasta. It can be either like mac and cheese or something like that too. Done that. Or ramen. I've done ramen before.
Oh gosh. Gets you sodium too.
Exactly. It's great.
But like, so it sounds like maybe some of the 10Ks are like longer trail runs that you've done. What's the toughest one that you've done?
So the toughest one I did was a 30K. So it was about 18 miles. The course was a little bit long, so it ended up being around like 19 and a half, 20. But what made it difficult was the heat, because it was at the end of June and it started at 2:00 in the afternoon.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So not ideal. And then It was on a single track trail, so like a trail that you can't really pass. It's very narrow. Think of your typical hiking trail. And it had been raining a lot, so the course was very, very muddy. So that made footing really difficult. So in some parts, it was actually faster to walk than it was to try and run. And then if you ran, you might slip and fall and hurt yourself. So that just made it really difficult. And then the other thing was I didn't train enough for it. I think the longest run I did before that was like 10 miles. So, and then I also had not trained with taking nutrition during a race. So I really hadn't practiced that too much. So I didn't get enough calories in during the race to sustain me through it. So and it was like, it's a 10K loop that you did 3 times. So the last loop, I walked the entire thing or hiked. And just because I didn't have the energy, I was tired, but I finished it. And I was super proud of myself. It took me like 5.5 hours, but.
Wow, I can't imagine how long it would take Dalaney and
I know, because I'd walk the whole thing.
Well, the other thing is too, is some races, they actually have cutoff times. So if you don't finish, and I think the cutoff time for that one was like maybe 8 or 8:30, and I finished at like 7:30. So I was getting, fairly close to that cutoff time, but
I mean, what do they really do? Because what if you're like halfway through your last loop and they're like, oh, cut off, like, bye, like, you still have to get back.
Well, yeah.
But nobody's there to meet you.
I know. Because like the marathons that Trent was talking about made sense, because it's like, okay, well, we're going to let traffic, go on the roads now. But like on a trail run, it's just like, well, we're going to pack up, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, well, sometimes it depends on where they're running, because like this was at a park, and so the park closed at dusk, and so it was like, and there were certain points where you could get off the trail and get back to like a road or something where someone could pick you up, but yeah, sometimes there are like, oh, the cutoff time, and it's like, well, I'm out in the middle of the woods, so I still have to make it back, but at least I can go, try and make it back as fast as I can instead of having to follow, wherever the course goes. So
you don't run with your cell phone though, do you? Or do people do that?
If I'm on a like training run, like on the road, no, I hate taking my cell phone. If I'm doing a trail run, because there aren't really any trails close to my house, yeah, I usually take my cell phone in case something happens.
But I mean, during the race, do people?
No, during the race, no, usually not.
Okay.
Well, it depends. I'll take that back. I actually, no, if it's like a longer race, so if it's like a half marathon or the 30K, I will take my phone with me. It kind of depends.
So I'm curious, you were, describing all these trails and how you run. How many pairs of shoes do you go through?
A lot.
What kind of shoes? Yeah.
So it depends on the shoe a little bit. It also depends on your preferences as well. I've heard a lot of people say 350 miles on the shoes, or like 3 to 6 months on the shoes, because sometimes, people don't run that much, but I would say that's probably about average for me. So I usually like do it by like the change of the seasons. So if I'm like starting, in the spring, starting a training block, then I'll get a new pair of shoes out just so I know that I'm not running on an old pair of shoes that are dead.
Is there anything that you never run without,
Shoes, for one thing. If I don't have my shoes, I won't go for a run. And then being a female, sports bra.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, that's very important.
And then there's a few other things that I typically have on me if I'm out for a run or even on a race, but it's not like the shoes or the sports bra. So I have a thing called a road ID that has some identification on it. So it has like my husband's cell phone number, my parents' cell phone number, my birth date, and like any allergies if I have them. So I typically have that on me. So in case something would happen, someone could at least identify or get a hold of someone I love to let them know what's going on. And then I also typically run with pepper spray as well.
Have you ever encountered any animals or anything out there, like dogs or any wildlife?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like
dogs are a pretty common thing. I've had dogs chase after me, and I've had to use a very loud, deep voice to tell them to get. I've had dogs chase my heels before. I've run into deer before in North Park, which is like the middle of Pittsburgh. And they just like stand there, and I'm like, okay, all right, y'all are just gonna chill there. So I just like run around them. They don't even move because they're not even fazed by humans anymore. That's probably the most common. So
Well, is there anything else that we didn't ask that you'd like to tell our listeners, or anything else you can think of that you think they should know about, I guess, cross country or trail running that you're doing now?
cross countries, I mean, it's a really fun sport. I really enjoy it so much more than I ever did track, because you get to run through woods and fields, and you don't always get to run through different kinds of terrain. And so it's just always like, it was more of an adventure to me than track ever was. And so I really enjoyed like pushing myself up the hills. But I think it's a great sport because it's also kind of a nice mesh between, there's the team aspect of it, because you run with your teammates and you can score as a team and you can win meets as a team, and that's really fun to do. But then it's also individual as well, because you're really running against yourself. You're really trying to be better than you were the previous day. And so I think that's really nice because it puts it on you, and you're not relying on your team members to actually win a game or something like that. So I really like that aspect of it.
Yeah, and Trump was saying at the end of marathon runs, there's beer and food. Do they have that at the end of trail running?
Oh yes, trail running more than anything. Oh goodness. I did a trail run last summer. It was like in July, and it was a 10K trail run, and it was like 3 miles up this hill and 3 miles down. So one of the more difficult races I've done. Really fun. But it's like, we started the race at like 9 in the morning, and so we're done at maybe like 10:30. You get back and there's a DJ playing music. There's, a beer distributor there handing out beers to people. And then there's just like maybe like 5 giant picnic tables that are just mounded with pizza. It was awesome. Wow. My husband was a big fan. So he didn't run, but I usually can't eat after races just because I tend to push myself too hard. And so it upsets my stomach if I eat too quickly afterwards. So he usually just eats all the food for me. So, but that's a lot of fun. And I really love the trail running community for that. We take running seriously, but we don't take ourselves too seriously.
I love that. I think that's what I've discovered in adult sports, is because you're not at that like elite Olympic level, but just like the everyday man, and just you go do the sport that you love, but then have like that community time together. Volleyball, we tend to mix the alcohol with the playing of the sport, but it's still just like super fun to hang out with people who just are crazy about something at the same level that you are.
Yeah. It's nice to have that community, especially because when you're doing your training runs, a lot of the time you're by yourself. And running by yourself it's a mental battle. And so when you actually get to be around people and you get to race with people, there's no feeling quite like race day and being around other people who run and do the same thing as you.
You're talking about a mental battle. Do you have like a playlist, or do you not listen to anything when you run and train?
So if I'm running on the roads or even on the trail, I don't listen to music. It's a safety thing, being a smaller female. I'm like 5'3". I don't want really anyone to kind of sneak up behind me. I also want to be able to hear cars, especially because I live in a busy area now. So I want to, if there's a car coming up behind me, I need to kind of get off the road a little bit. And then same thing on the trail too, especially if there's other people running on the trail, I want to be mindful of them as well as kind of trail etiquette. If I'm in a gym on a treadmill, which I do that often in the wintertime because I don't like running in the snow, I will listen to music. So I typically listen to what's called EDM or higher tempo music.
Thanks, Kara. That was really awesome. So thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks everyone for listening. And again, we want to hear from you guys. We always want to hear from you guys. Please, please, please reach out to us. And here are just a few ways that you can do that. You can reach out via Instagram and Facebook. Find us at Salty About Health. Even Snapchat at Salty Health. You can email us at saltyabouthealth@gmail.com. Or if you just want to find all that in one place, check out our website, saltyabouthealth.com. We've got all the ways for you to listen and connect there. And finally, if you like what you hear today, leave us a review on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen. We really appreciate it. So, Mom, if they want to hear from you on social media, where can they find you?
Okay, I am a certified health coach and I do coach one-on-one. So if you're interested, you can contact me at mary@feedyourselfhealthy.com. I also do research for people who are interested in finding alternative approaches to do in conjunction with the health issue or illness their doctor is treating them for. So again, just reach out to me at mary@feedyourselfhealthy.com or follow me on Twitter at feedyourselfhealthy, which is spelled FeedurselfHealthy. That's where they can find me.
Cool. Okay. And if you guys want to find me, I'm not a health coach, but I'm on Instagram hanging out there at Dalaney.a. Find out how to spell my name in the show notes and everything. And of course, I'll be the one mainly keeping an eye on the social media. So always happy to chat with you guys via the Salty Network. Also, just want to shout out our intro and outro music. It is by Yule, and you can find her at www.yulearts.com. That's EULARTS. You can also find her on Instagram at Yule_arts or Spotify and YouTube. Check her out. Her piano music and everything else is amazing. And until next time, stay salty.
Stay salty.